Hello, everybody. My name is Isaac Herndon, and today I'm going to be giving an informative speech on how to receive criticism effectively. Unfortunately, criticism is something that we're all going to have to deal with in our day-to-day lives. Hopefully, by the end of this speech, the audience will be able to identify and understand a few steps on how to receive criticism more effectively. Receiving criticism effectively is learning how to respond well by seeking out information, agreeing with the critic, and then working together in order to find a solution. And then after you're done with conversation, mending whatever tension you had with him and then continuing on in your lives. This is all very important when taking criticism. The dread of criticism is the death of genius. William Gilmore Simms. I really like this quote because it shows how important criticism is. If we refuse to take criticism, or if we dread receiving criticism, then most likely we're not going to get better later on in life. The best way to improve in life is to take criticism and use it. The problem is, nobody likes being corrected. I can say personally, I hate being corrected, especially if I feel like it's something that I shouldn't be corrected on. It is often easy to respond with a defensive and self-preserving response. I do it all the time. I'm sure anybody listening to this speech does it all the time. Hopefully, by the end of this speech, we will all be able to take the criticism effectively and use the following steps in order to improve in our daily conversations. The first thing you must do when taking criticism is gather information. You must find out exactly what you did wrong. First, you must seek exact examples in order to help understand the problem. And the most effective way you can do this is by simply asking, hey, can you show me exactly what I did wrong? When this happens, your critic can then pinpoint, hey, you did so-and-so wrong, and then you know not to make that same mistake again. The next thing that you can do is acknowledge the feedback that you do not want to dispute by stating, you're right, I messed this up. Sometimes you make a mistake and you have to bring your ego down a little bit. I know we don't like to, but it is very important when receiving criticism. It shows the critic and yourself that you are taking things very seriously. The next thing to do is paraphrase your critic by stating, I hear what you're saying, and this helps me reflect and make improvements. When you paraphrase everything that he just said, it shows that you are listening to every small critique that he was making. This will help you these will help prevent you from making these mistakes again. The last thing you can do is just ask the critic exactly what he wants. Maybe you just messed up a little bit and you missed a small point, and the best way to figure out that point is to ask the critic. Next thing you want to do is find common ground. Agree with the facts that the critic provides. Maybe everything the critic said you don't agree with, but I'm sure that there can be a few things that you could find that y'all could find common ground on. So find those facts and then work them out with the critic. The next thing you can do is agree with the fact that the critic's perception might be different than yours. There's a good chance that your critic may have been taught differently. So maybe you and him can't see eye to eye, and sometimes it's just best to understand that. In a lot of situations like this, sometimes you can just take what the critic says and then just not really push it to the side, but don't get your feelings hurt over it because you were taught differently. And you can understand this and then maybe even relay that back to him. The biggest thing to do is emphasize on the areas that you and the critic agree with. Maybe there's just a few things that you disagree on, but if you can find the things that you agree on, then you can emphasize those things and then elaborate on them, and then that will help both you and the critic with whatever situation you're dealing with. The next thing that you must do is generate solutions. When getting critiqued, you want to try to find a solution on why the critique was critiquing you. One thing you can do in order to figure out a solution is ask to state your point of view. Maybe the critic just doesn't understand what you were thinking. So the best thing you can do is tell them, hey, so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. Now the critic knows your thought process, and now you two can work together in order to find a solution to whatever problem you're dealing with. Focus on finding a solution and not who's at fault. This point is extremely important. If you two just sit there and bitter and batter with each other and keep arguing back and forth, then you're never going to find out the solution to your problem. Majority of the time, it doesn't matter who's at fault. It doesn't matter who messed up. You just need to figure out the solution to the problem. So be sure to work with your critic on that exact thing. Try to find a solution no matter what the critique or problem is. Lastly is ending the conversation. You must end the conversation well, because if you don't, it could end up causing more tension later on. And I don't think that's anything that we want to deal with in our work lives, personal lives, or any situation in our lives. So the first thing you can do is thank them for sharing feedback in order to express appreciation. When you express appreciation, it shows them that, hey, maybe we don't agree on everything, but my critiques meant something to him, and hopefully those critiques can help him. The next thing you can do is, once you've thanked them, request time to follow up to continue to work on a problem. Some problems take longer than all other problems. So maybe it will take a little bit of time in order to figure out. Maybe ask them, hey, next week, can you come and show me this again? That way I don't make the same mistake again. Sometimes time can help heal with criticism. Thank you for listening to my speech. I hope this was helpful step-by-step guide in order to understand how to take criticism more effectively. Receiving criticism can often be a very challenging encounter. I can say for me, I've had a lot of challenging criticisms, and I've often yelled back at the critics, and hopefully this speech will help prevent that later on. One cool analogy that I heard was that a bucket of water, sand, and gold. That's what criticism is like. You know, nobody likes water and sand. When you go to the beach, you get sand in your pants, you don't like it. But every once in a while, you may find a little piece of gold. So maybe if you rumble through the criticism, you can find that one golden nugget that ends up helping you in the long run. Next, you must be able to seek information. Continue to seek information. And that way, when you're critiqued, you know what to say, you know what to ask. It's very important to try to figure out exactly what you did wrong. Then you want to agree with the critic, because who wants to be in disagreements all the time? You must be able to find common ground with your critic in order to improve in your work situations. Then you want to work towards a solution. Working towards a solution is the best way in order to get your bang out of your buck when it comes to criticisms. Lastly, end the conversation appropriately. Nobody likes to argue. Nobody likes to yell. The best thing to do is to work with your critic in order to find an effective way to continue on in your relationship. I hope this speech helped you, and I hope that you all have a great week.